He locked my brother away in the old mill. The 5-year-old collapsed through the diner door, her bare feet painting blood across the tile. Ryan's been gone 4 days. The deputy won't help because he's the one who took him. Jade Martinez looked up from his coffee and saw what no man should ever see, a child who'd walked miles through Montana snow because every adult in her life had failed. Her daughter's name was Lily Chen. Her brother was 9 years old, and the man who'd taken him was Deputy Marshal Frank Holloway, Millbrook's golden boy. Within hours, motorcycles would converge on this town, and a secret buried in concrete and lies would finally crack open. The waitress screamed. Jade was already moving, his boots hitting the floor before his brain fully processed what he was seeing. The little girl swayed on her feet, her lips blue, her eyes rolling back. Jade caught the child before she hit the ground. Maya Sullivan dropped her menu and ran, her medic training overriding everything else. She knelt beside Jade, her fingers finding the girl's pulse, while her eyes catalogued the damage. Frostbite on the toes, hypothermia setting in, skin like ice. She's freezing. We need heat, blankets, warm fluids. Maya stripped off her own leather jacket and wrapped it around the tiny body. Someone call an ambulance. Double quotes. No. Double quotes. The girl's eyes snapped open, wild with panic. No ambulance. They'll tell Deputy Holloway. He'll know I left. He'll hurt Ryan worse. Easy, sweetheart, easy. Jade's voice dropped into the gentle register he'd learned in foster homes. The one that said, "I've been where you are. Nobody's calling anyone you don't want us to call. But you're freezing and you're hurt, and we need to help you. Can you let us do that?" The girl studied his face, taking in the grey beard, the weathered skin, the skull patch on his vest that said Iron Wolves, MC, Montana chapter. She was making a calculation that number 5-year-old should know how to make, weighing the danger she could see against the danger she'd left behind. "You're bikers," she whispered. "Yes. M.A.A.M. Mommy said bikers are dangerous." Jade's wife, Sarah, appeared beside him with a first aid kit and thermal blankets. She had kind eyes and grey hair pulled back in a braid, and she knelt down so she was eye level with the child. "Your mommy was right, honey. We are dangerous, but not two little girls who need help." "What's your name?" "Lily. Lily Chen." "Well, Lily Chen, my name is Sarah. And this is my husband, Jade. We're going to get you warm and fed. And then you're going to tell us exactly what happened." "Deal." Lily nodded, and Sarah lifted her onto a booth seat, wrapping the thermal blankets around her while Maya worked on her feet. The diner had gone silent. 6 other bikers from the Iron Wolves sat frozen, watching this tiny, damaged thing bleed on their vinyl. "Rico," Jade said quietly, "lock that door. Nobody comes in or out until we know what we're dealing with." Rico Delgado moved fast, flipping the sign to closed and pulling the shade. He was lean and sharp, and he'd spent years in army intelligence before the Iron Wolves became his family. He understood that when a child showed up bleeding and terrified, you controlled the environment first. Sarah brought hot chocolate. Lily wrapped her small hands around the mug, and Jade watched her drink with the desperate gratitude of someone who'd been walking 4 hours with no destination except away. "When did you last eat?" "Sweetheart, yesterday morning before I left." "Left from where?" "Home. Our house on Pinewood Drive." Maya looked up from bandaging Lily's feet. "Pinewood Drive is miles from here." "I know. I counted the street signs." Jade felt something cold settle in his stomach. Miles in late November Montana, with no coat and no shoes. He glanced at Sarah, saw his own horror reflected in her face. "Lily," Sarah said gently, "you said someone locked your brother away. Can you tell us what happened?" Lily's face crumpled, but she fought the tears back with a stubbornness that broke Jade's heart. "Ryan saw something bad at the old Riverside Mill days ago." "What did he see?" "Deputy Holloway meeting with men in suits. Ryan had Mommy's old phone. We're not supposed to use it, but Ryan wanted to take pictures of the birds that nest at the mill. He was up in the loft and the deputy came with these men, and they were moving boxes. Ryan said the boxes had police tape on them, evidence bags. Rico pulled out his own phone, started taking notes. Did Ryan recognize any of the other men? Lily shook her head, but he took pictures. Lots of pictures. And then her voice broke. And then Deputy Holloway looked up and saw him. The diner was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. What did the deputy do? Jade asked. He yelled at Ryan to come down. Ryan was scared, but the deputy said he just wanted to talk. So Ryan climbed down. Deputy Holloway asked to see the phone. Ryan said no. The deputy grabbed him. Ryan fought and pressed send on the phone before the deputy got it. He was trying to send the picture somewhere. Did it send? Rico asked. I don't know. The deputy took the phone and put it in his pocket. Then he put Ryan in his police car and drove away. When was this? Saturday afternoon. Days ago. Sarah's hand tightened on Lily's shoulder. And you haven't seen Ryan since? No. The deputy came to our house that night. He told our grandmother that Ryan was being processed for juvenile trespassing and destruction of property. He said Ryan would be at the county facility 4 hours, and then we could see him. But Ryan never made it there. Jade leaned forward. How do you know? Because Grandma called the facility to ask when we could visit. They said they had no record of Ryan Chen, no intake, no processing, nothing. So Grandma called the police station and the chief. He's Deputy Holloway's uncle. He said there must be a clerical error, and they'd look into it. But they didn't. Grandma waited all day. Nobody called back. So this morning she went to the police station in person. The chief told her to go home and stop making trouble. That Ryan was fine, and she'd see him when the processing was complete. Grandma got upset and said she was calling a lawyer. The chief said if she caused problems, social services might look into whether an old woman should be raising 2 children alone. Maya muttered something in Spanish that made Rico wince. So Grandma came home crying. Lily continued, and I heard her on the phone trying to find a lawyer, but everyone she called said they were too busy, as they didn't handle juvenile cases. She didn't know I was listening. She told her friend that she thinks they've been threatened. Jade exchanged looks with Sarah. This wasn't random incompetence. This was coordinated silence. Why did you leave, Lily? Sarah asked gently. Why not wait with your grandmother? Because Ryan's been gone 4 days and nobody's looking for him. Because the police won't help, and the lawyers won't help, and Grandma's too scared to push any more. And because Lily pulled something from her pocket, a phone, old and cracked, the battery dead. Because I found this in the deputy's patrol car. The temperature in the room dropped. You what? Yesterday morning, when the deputy came to talk to Grandma again. I snuck out and looked in his car. It was unlocked. I found Mommy's phone under the front seat. Ryan's pictures are on this phone. That's why the deputy hasn't given it back. That's why Ryan's missing. Rico reached for the phone, handling it like it was made of glass. This could be evidence of a serious crime. I know. Lily looked at Jade. That's why I brought it to you. Grandma says I can't trust the police. I can't trust the lawyers. I can't trust any of the grown-ups in this town, because they're all either related to Deputy Holloway or scared of him or they owe him favors. So I walked to where the grown-ups aren't. And why us? Jade asked. Why the Iron Wolves? Because months ago you rode through town. Ryan and I were walking home from school and Deputy Holloway was on the corner, and he smiled at us, but his eyes were mean. And then your motorcycles came down Main Street and Deputy Holloway's smile went away, and he looked scared. And I thought anybody who makes the bad man scared must be good. Sarah pulled the child into a hug, and Lily finally let the tears come, sobbing into a stranger's shoulder, because she had nowhere else left to go. Jade stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where his bike sat. Hours ago his biggest concern was whether they'd make it to Spokane before the snow hit. Now he was looking at a 5-year-old who'd been forced to become her own cavalry. Boss, Rico said quietly, we need to charge this phone and see what's on it. Do it. Maya finished wrapping Lily's feet. She needs a hospital. These wounds could get infected. No hospital, Lily said, pulling away from Sarah. They'll call social services. Social services will call Deputy Holloway. Please, I know I'm just a kid and you probably think I'm making this up, but I'm not. Ryan's in trouble and I'm the only one looking for him. And if you send me away, he's going to die. Jade turned around. We're not sending you anywhere, but I need you to understand something. If what you're telling us is true, if a deputy marshal has kidnapped your brother and is covering it up, that's serious. That's federal. And we're bikers, not cops. We don't have legal authority to investigate anything, but you have motorcycles, and you have each other, and you're not afraid. Lily looked at him with desperate hope. Please, I don't need legal authority. I need someone who will actually look. Rico's laptop beeped. Phone's charging. Give me minutes, and I'll have access to the photos. Those minutes felt like hours. Sarah made Lily eat a sandwich. Maya checked her vitals again. The other bikers stood guard, watching the street, their hands resting on weapons they hoped they wouldn't need. Then Rico swore. What? Jade crossed to the laptop in 3 strides. Look at this. Rico pulled up the first photo. It showed Deputy Marshal Frank Holloway standing in the Riverside Mill with 3 men in dark suits. Behind them, stacks of cardboard boxes, each marked with evidence tape. Now look at this one. The second photo was closer, focused on one of the boxes. The label was clear. Evidence case number Millbrook PD. Do not tamper. That's an evidence box from an active case, Rico said. And it's not in the evidence locker. It's in an abandoned mill with no chain of custody. Keep going. Rico scrolled through more photos. Each one showed a different angle of the same scene. Evidence boxes being loaded into an unmarked van. Documents being photographed. And in the last photo, a clear shot of one of the men in suits. His face was visible, his ID badge partially showing. Rico zoomed in, enhanced the image. That's a DOJ badge. Department of Justice, Federal. Jade felt the floor shift under him. A deputy marshal and federal agents are stealing evidence from a local police case, or planting it somewhere else, or destroying it. Hard to say without knowing what case those boxes belong to. Sarah pulled up a chair. Lily, honey, do you know anything about a police case in Millbrook? Something big that would involve the Department of Justice. Lily shook her head. I'm 5. Nobody tells me about police stuff. What about your dad? Did he work for the police? No, Daddy was an engineer. He checked water and soil and stuff for the environment. Rico and Jade locked eyes. Lily, Jade said carefully. What happened to your dad? The little girl's face went very still. He died months ago. Accident at the Riverside Mill. Something fell on him. The room went silent. Same mill where Ryan saw the deputy. Sarah whispered. Jade's phone was in his hand before he made the conscious decision to call. The number he dialed belonged to a man he'd served with in Iraq. A man who now worked for the FBI. Marcus, it's Jade Martinez. I need you to run a name for me. David Chen, Millbrook, Montana. Died months ago in an industrial accident. And I need you to pull any DOJ cases involving Millbrook the past years. He hung up and looked at his wife. We're staying. I know this could get bad. I know that too. Jade turned to Rico. Make the call. I want every chapter within miles here by morning. Full alert. How many is that? Almost 100 bikes. Give or take. Lily looked up at him. You walked miles to find help, little one. Help's coming. More help than you know what to do with. His phone rang. Marcus calling back. That was never a good sign. Jade. Where are you right now? Millbrook. Why? Get out. Get out right now. David Cheng wasn't an accident victim. He was a federal witness. He was scheduled to testify before a grand jury about environmental contamination at the Riverside Mill. The case involved corporate fraud, falsified EPA reports, and allegations that local law enforcement was being paid to destroy evidence and intimidate other potential witnesses. Who was paying them? A company called Summit Energy. They want the mill site for natural gas extraction. But there's a complication. The land includes Native American burial grounds, and the Chen family was leading the opposition. David Chen's water samples proved the site was already contaminated. His testimony would have shut down the whole operation. and then he died days before his grand jury appearance. The investigation into his death was handled by Deputy Marshal Frank Holloway. He signed off on the accident report as a witness, called it equipment failure. No criminal charges filed. Jade looked at Lily, who was watching him with eyes that understood more than they should. Marcus, if David Chen was a federal witness, why didn't the FBI protect his family? We tried. The case agent requested protective custody for the widow and kids. Request was denied by someone at DOJ. File was sealed, and weeks later, Chen's widow died in a car accident. The phone almost slipped from Jade's hand. Lily's mother, Jennifer Chen, single vehicle collision on highway. No witnesses. Investigation ruled it driver error, and the investigator was Frank Holloway. By then, he'd been promoted to deputy marshal. He handled the whole thing, and somehow, he ended up being appointed as the children's emergency guardian until the grandmother filed for custody, which took months because her petition kept getting lost in the system. Jade looked at Lily, who lost your grandmother's custody petition. I don't know. Grandma said it was the court, but Deputy Holloway was always really nice to us during that time. He said he was making sure we were safe while they processed the paperwork. He was keeping you close, Sarah said. Making sure you didn't talk to the wrong people. Jade spoke into the phone. Marcus, days ago, Ryan Chen witnessed Holloway and federal agents moving evidence boxes at the same mill where his father died. Ryan took photos. Holloway arrested him for trespassing and Ryan disappeared. No record at the juvenile facility. No lawyer will touch the case. The local police chief, Holloway's uncle, is stonewalling. Marcus was quiet for so long. Jade thought the caller dropped. Marcus, I'm here. I'm just trying to figure out how to tell you that the DOJ agents in those photos might be the same ones who buried the Chen investigation months ago. You're saying federal agents are working with a local deputy to cover up a double homicide. I'm saying Summit Energy has enough money to buy anyone they need, and the Chen family has been in their way 4 years. David testified. He died. Jennifer started asking questions. She died. And now Ryan has evidence that could expose the whole operation. So he's next. Jade's voice was cold. Unless we find him first. Jade, listen to me. If you're right, if federal agents are involved, you cannot handle this alone. I'm calling the Seattle field office right now. They'll have a team in Millbrook by morning. Ryan's been missing 4 days. We don't have until morning. Then don't do anything stupid until I get there. I'm leaving now. I'll be there in hours. Hours is a long time for a 9-year-old locked in a mill basement. Jade, thanks for the intel. Marcus, see you when you get here. He hung up and looked at his family, because that's what they were. The Iron Wolves. A family built from broken pieces that had learned to protect each other. Here's the situation, Jade said. Ryan Chen witnessed a federal crime. The people who committed it have already killed his parents and made it look like accidents. Now they have Ryan, and they're deciding whether it's safer to release him or make him disappear permanently. We have maybe hours before they make that decision. What we don't have is legal authority, federal backup, or any evidence that will hold up in court. What we do have is a phone full of photos and almost 100 really angry bikers. And we have me, Lily said. Her voice was small but steady. I know things about Daddy and Mommy, and what happened. I remember. Jade knelt in front of her. What do you remember, sweetheart? The night before Daddy's accident, men came to our house. Mommy made us hide in the closet, but I could hear them. They told Daddy that if he testified, bad things would happen to his family. Daddy said he wasn't afraid. The men said he should be. And then they left, and Daddy and Mommy had a big fight. Daddy said he had to do the right thing. Mommy said the right thing was keeping his children alive. Lily's hands were shaking again. Sarah took them, held them steady. The next day, Daddy went to the mill. He said he wanted to collect one more water sample before the testimony. He took Ryan with him. Ryan was with him when the beam fell. Ryan saw it. It wasn't an accident. Someone had cut the support beam partway through. Daddy told Ryan to run and get help. Ryan ran, but by the time the ambulance came, Daddy was already dead. The diner had gone completely silent. Did Ryan tell anyone what he saw? Jade asked. He tried to tell Deputy Hall away. The deputy said Ryan was confused because he was traumatized. He said children make up stories when they're scared. He said if Ryan kept telling that story, people would think he was crazy and take him away from Mommy. So Ryan stopped talking about it. But he didn't forget. He never forgot. Jade stood up and looked at his brothers. That boy has been living with the knowledge that someone murdered his father 4 months. He's been watching his mother ask questions and die for it. And now he's got proof that the same people are still operating, still destroying evidence, still getting away with it. If we don't find him, we'll find him, Maya said. No child left behind. That's the code. No child left behind. The others echoed. Jade pulled out his phone and started texting. Chapter presidents from Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, Washington, Oregon. The message was simple. Child missing. Federal corruption. Possible homicide. Need all hands. Millbrook, Montana. Now. The responses came back within minutes. Boise chapter bikes hours out. Spokane chapter bikes hours out. Wyoming chapter bikes hours out. The messages kept coming. By the time Jade's phone stopped buzzing, almost 100 motorcycles were converging on a town that had spent months burying the truth. Lily watched him, hope and terror warring in her eyes. What happens now? Jade picked up Ryan's phone. The evidence that could bring down a conspiracy. Now we go find your brother. And we make sure everyone who hurt your family answers for it. Sarah wrapped Lily in another blanket. But first, you're going to rest. You've been walking all night and you're exhausted. I can't rest. Ryan needs me. Ryan needs you alive and strong, Jade said gently. The bikes won't be here for a few hours anyway. Sleep. We'll wake you the second we're ready to move. Lily looked like she wanted to argue, but her body betrayed her. The adrenaline that had carried her miles was crushing, and she curled into Sarah's arms like a child half her age. Promise you won't leave without me. Lily whispered, I promise. Within minutes, Lily was asleep. Sarah carried her to a booth in the back and laid her down with jackets, 4 pillows and blankets piled high. Jade watched the little girl sleep and thought about all the ways the world failed children. He thought about the systems designed to protect them that instead became weapons used against them. He thought about Ryan Chen, locked somewhere dark, waiting for help that might never come. And he thought about the almost 100 bikers riding through the night, answering a call they didn't have to answer for a child they'd never met. Because sometimes the system fails, and sometimes when it does, the only thing standing between a child and the dark is a bunch of outlaws who still believe in something. Rico looked up from his laptop. Boss, I've been digging into Summit Energy. This goes deeper than we thought. How deep? 7 families have refused to sell their land to Summit. All 7 have experienced what the insurance companies call unfortunate incidents in the past months. House fires, car accidents, mysterious illnesses. 3 dead. 4 families relocated out of state. The Chen family was supposed to be next, except David Chen fought back and died for it, along with his wife, which leaves 2 orphan children who inherit the property and have a grandmother with no legal or financial resources to fight a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Exactly. Summit's been waiting for the grandmother to fold, but now Ryan's got evidence that could expose their whole operation. Evidence of federal agents conspiring with local law enforcement to destroy a criminal investigation. Jade pulled up a chair. Walk me through what we're looking at. Best case scenario. We find Ryan alive. Get him to federal authorities we can trust, and his testimony plus these photos bring down everyone involved. Worst case, they've already killed him and buried the phone. We ride in there, find nothing, get arrested for harassment, and Summit Energy moves forward with their extraction operation, while the Chen family loses everything. What's the middle case? Rico met his eyes. Middle case is we find Ryan, but he's in bad shape. Traumatized, maybe hurt, maybe not coherent enough to testify. And without his testimony, the photos might not be enough. Good lawyers can explain away photos. They can't explain away a child who can articulate exactly what he saw and when. So we need Ryan alive and able to talk. Yeah, Jade looked out the window at the early morning light creeping across the Montana sky. Somewhere in this town, a 9-year-old boy was waiting. Maybe he'd given up hope. Maybe he thought everyone had forgotten him. Maybe he needed to know that sometimes when you call for help in the dark, the cavalry actually shows up. Even if that cavalry wears leather instead of badges. Jade's phone rang again. Unknown number, Martinez, Mr. Martinez. The voice was male, smooth, educated. My name is Victor Brennan. I'm an attorney representing Summit Energy Corporation. I understand you've recently come into possession of certain property that doesn't belong to you. Jade's blood went cold. A child who's looking for her missing brother. Her brother who was arrested by your Deputy Marshal Holloway days ago and hasn't been seen since. There was a pause. I'm not aware of any missing child. Ryan Chen, 9 years old, arrested Saturday for trespassing at Riverside Mill. No record of intake at the county juvenile facility. No record anywhere. His grandmother has filed multiple inquiries and been stonewalled at every turn. That sounds like a matter for local law enforcement. Local law enforcement is the problem. Another pause. Longer this time. Mr. Martinez, I'm going to give you some advice. You seem like a reasonable man. You've served your country. You understand how systems work. Sometimes children get confused. Sometimes they misremember things or exaggerate situations because they're scared and looking for attention. I'm sure the boy is fine and will turn up in due course. But in the meantime, that phone needs to be returned to the proper authorities today. Define proper authorities. Deputy Marshal Holloway. He's the lead investigator on the Chen case. The phone should be in his custody. The same Deputy Marshal who might have killed the Chens and is now covering it up. That's a very serious accusation. One I hope you're prepared to defend in court. I've got photos that suggest federal agents and local law enforcement were conspiring to tamper with evidence. You want to take that to court? Let's go. I'll bring the press. Victor Brennan's voice hardened. Mr. Martinez, you're making a mistake. Summit Energy has substantial resources and excellent relationships with law enforcement at every level. If you pursue this, you'll find yourself facing charges you can't defend against. You'll lose your business, your freedom, possibly your life. And that little girl sleeping in your diner, she end up in state custody right where Deputy Holloway can keep an eye on her. Is that really what you want? Jade looked at Lily, small and broken and trusting. What I want is for Ryan Chen to be returned to his family alive and unharmed. What I want is for the people who killed his parents to answer for it. And what I want is for predators like you to understand that there are still some people in this world who can't be bought or threatened into silence. Then you're a fool, maybe. But I'm a fool with almost 100 brothers who feel the same way. And we're coming for that boy. You can help us or get out of our way. But either way, we're not stopping. You've been warned. Mr. Martinez. What happens next is on you. The line went dead. Rico looked up from his laptop. They know we have the phone, and they know Lily's here, which means they'll be coming for her. Jade walked to the window and looked out at the empty street. Dawn was breaking over Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It looked peaceful. It looked safe. It was neither. Lock this place down, Jade said. Nobody in or out except our people. And somebody wake up Lily. She needs to know what we're walking into. Because that was the thing about fighting monsters. Sometimes you had to wake up the children and tell them the truth. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. Sarah was shaking Lily awake when the first motorcycle rumbled into the parking lot. Then another. Then 6 more. The sound built like thunder. And Lily's eyes went wide. They're here, she whispered. Jade stepped outside into the cold morning air and watched them come. The Boise chapter rolled in first, bikes in tight formation led by a woman, Rachel Gunnar Torres, who'd lost her own daughter to a custody battle rigged by a corrupt judge. She killed her engine and pulled off her helmet. Her dark eyes finding Jade. Heard you got a missing kid situation. 9-year-old boy. Days gone. Local deputy took him and erased the records. Then let's go get him. The bikes kept coming. Spoken chapter, Selene, Great Falls. They filled the parking lot and spilled onto the street. And Millbrook woke up to the sight of almost 100 motorcycles parked outside a closed diner like an occupying army. Jade gathered the chapter presidents inside. Lily sat at the center table, small and pale, Ryan's phone in front of her like evidence at a trial. Tell them what you told me, Jade said gently. Lily repeated the story. Her voice shook at first, then steadied as she went. The other bikers listened without interrupting, and when she finished, Gunnar leaned forward. You walked miles in the snow to find us. Yes, ma'am, barefoot. I didn't have time to find my shoes. Gunnar looked at Jade. What do we know about the deputy? Rico pulled up his laptop. Frank Holloway, age, deputy marshal, Millbrook Division, decorated officer, community volunteer. His uncle is Sheriff James Holloway. His girlfriend is the high school counselor. His cousin runs the county clerk's office. His family's been in law enforcement here for 3 generations. So he's connected. He's the whole damn system. And according to FBI intel, he's been on Summit Energy's payroll for at least years, maybe longer. A biker from Wyoming named Stone spoke up. What's Summit Energy's angle? Natural gas extraction. The Riverside mill site sits on top of a major deposit, but the land includes native burial grounds, and the Chen family's been leading the opposition. They've blocked every permit, every environmental waiver. Summit's invested millions in this project, and they can't move forward until the Chens are out of the way. So they killed the parents, made it look like accidents, and now they've got the kid who can prove it. Lily's hands were shaking. Sarah put an arm around her. Where's the mill? Gunnar asked. East side of town. Abandoned since the Chen accident, condemned by the city, but there's been activity there at night. Trucks, lights in the basement level. Then that's where we start. Jade held up a hand. We go in smart. No cowboys. We're looking for a child, not starting a war. Yet, Stone said. Yet. They divided into teams. Gunnar took bikes to canvass the families who'd refused to sell to Summit Energy. Stone took another group to set up surveillance on the mill from a distance. Maya and 3 others would hit the county records office when it opened and demand to see Ryan's intake paperwork. Rico stayed at the diner with his laptop, digging deeper into Summit's operations. Lily stood up. I want to go to the mill. Absolutely not, Sarah said. Ryan might hear my voice. He might call out if he knows I'm there. And Deputy Holloway might grab you, too. Then we've got 2 missing kids instead of 1. I don't care. Ryan saved my life when Daddy died. He held me when Mommy died. He's been protecting me 4 months. And now it's my turn to protect him. Jade knelt in front of her. You already protected him. You got us here. That's your job done. Now let us do ours. But no buts. You stay here with Rico and Sarah, where it's safe. That's not negotiable. Lily looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Jade's face stopped her. She nodded and Jade felt a weight lift. One less thing to worrying about. The teams rolled out at a .m, and Millbrook's morning commuters got an education in what almost 100 motorcycles looked like when they owned the streets. People stopped on sidewalks, cars pulled over, and in the police station on Main Street, Deputy Marshal Frank Holloway watched through the window and reached for his phone. Gunnar's team hit the first house at. The family's name was Morrison. Husband, wife, 3 kids under. Their house had burned down months ago. Fire marshal ruled it electrical. But the husband told a different story. We were the last holdouts on Oak Street, John Morrison said. He was a thin man with tired eyes sitting in the kitchen of the rental house they'd moved to after the fire. 6 families on that block owned land Summit wanted. 5 sold within a year. We refused. Why? Gunnar asked. Because my grandfather built that house. Because that land's been in my family for 4 generations. because Summit's offer was a quarter of what the property was worth, and everyone knew once they got the mill site, property values on Oak Street would skyrocket. They lowballed us, hoping we were desperate enough to take it. What happened after you refused? Morrison's wife, Lisa, spoke up. Harassment started immediately. Threatening letters. Dead animals left on the porch. Someone slashed our tires 3 times in weeks. Then our youngest got sick. Emma, she's 7, started vomiting. Couldn't keep food down. Doctor couldn't figure out what was wrong. Environmental poisoning, Gunnar said. That's what we thought. We had our well water tested. Came back contaminated with industrial runoff. Same chemicals David Chen found at the mill site. Did you report it? To who? The sheriff's office. They told us it was probably a natural occurrence and we should get city water installed. Cost us thousands we didn't have. And then the fires started in the walls. AM on a Tuesday. We barely got the kids out. Lost everything. And you know who showed up to investigate? Deputy Holloway. He was so sympathetic, so helpful. Told us how lucky we were that nobody died. Suggested that maybe this was a sign we should take Summit's offer and start fresh somewhere else. Said he could facilitate the sale. Make sure we got a fair price. Did you sell? Morrison's face hardened. We took the money. We didn't have a choice. Our daughter was sick. Our house was gone. We were living in a motel. Summit came back with a better offer. Still under market value, but enough to pay our debts and relocate. We signed the papers the same day David Chen died at the mill. Gunnar made notes. You think the timing was connected? I know it was. David Chen was the only one with the resources to fight Summit in court. He had evidence. He had expert testimony. He was going to testify that Summit had been deliberately contaminating properties to drive down values and force sales. Once he was dead, the rest of us folded. What about his wife? Lisa Morrison started crying. Jennifer called me weeks after David died. She said she was scared. She said men had come to her house and told her that if she continued David's lawsuit, her children would be orphaned. She asked me what she should do, and I told her. Lisa's voice broke. I told her to think of her kids and let it go. I told her no amount of money was worth dying for, and then she died anyway. The kitchen went silent except for Lisa Morrison's quiet sobs. Did Jennifer say who the men were? Gunnar asked gently. Federal agents. She said they showed her badges. Department of Justice. They told her the investigation into David's death was closed and she needed to stop making accusations, or she'd be charged with filing false reports and lose custody of Ryan and Lily. Jesus, one of Gunnar's team, whispered. She died days later. Car accident on a straight stretch of highway she'd driven 1,000 times. And Deputy Holloway investigated that one, too. Ruled it driver error. Case closed. Gunnar stood up. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, would you be willing to testify to all of this if we can guarantee your safety? John Morrison looked at his wife, then at the rental house that would never be home. If you can guarantee it, but Summit owns half this town. They've got judges, cops, politicians. How do you fight that? By making so much noise they can't silence us all. The team hit 5 more families in the next hours. The stories were variations on the same theme: intimidation, contamination, mysterious accidents, and every single investigation handled by the Holloway family or their associates. By Gunnar had 6 families willing to testify, and a pattern so clear a first-year law student could prosecute it. Meanwhile, Stone's surveillance team set up in an abandoned warehouse with a clear view of the Riverside Mill. Through binoculars, they watched a security guard patrol the perimeter every hour. They watched delivery trucks come and go through a back entrance, and at a .m, they watched Deputy Marshal Frank Holloway pull up in his cruiser and unlock the front gate. Stone radioed Jade. Holloway just entered the mill. He's alone. Can you see what he's doing? Negative. He went inside. No visual through the windows. They're boarded up. Stay on him. If he comes out with a kid, I want to know immediately. Jade was at the county courthouse with Maya. waiting for the clerk's office to open. When it did, they walked in together, and the young woman behind the counter took one look at their vests and went pale. "We need to see the intake records for Ryan Chen, arrested Saturday night. Juvenile trespassing. I don't have access to those records. You'd need to request them through official channels. Official channels seem to be broken. We'll wait while you find someone who does have access." The clerk disappeared into a back office. Voices rose in argument. Minutes later, an older woman emerged. The county clerk, according to her nameplate. Also, according to Rico's research, Deputy Holloway's cousin. "I'm afraid juvenile records are sealed," the clerk said. "Even if we had a record of this child, I couldn't share it without a court order." "Do you have a record?" Jade asked. "I can't answer that without a court order. A child has been missing 4 days. His grandmother filed multiple inquiries." "You're telling me you can't confirm whether he's in county custody?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Maya leaned forward. "Ma'am, we're not asking for details. We're asking for confirmation that a child exists in your system. That's public information. If you refuse to provide it, we'll assume you're part of the cover-up." The clerk's face flushed. "Cover-up? How dare you? How dare we ask where a missing child is? How dare we expect public officials to do their jobs? Which part offends you? I think you should leave." "We're not leaving until we see proof that Ryan Chen is safe." "Then I'm calling security." "Call them." The clerk picked up the phone and minutes later, two sheriff's deputies arrived. They were young, early-s, and they looked nervous facing a room full of bikers. "These people are harassing our staff," the clerk said. "I want them removed." One deputy cleared his throat. "Folks, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the building. We're here legally requesting public information," Jade said calmly. "We haven't raised our voices. We haven't threatened anyone. We have a right to be here. You're disrupting government operations. The only disruption is this office refusing to account for a missing child." The deputy's partner spoke up. "What child?" "Ryan Chen, 9 years old, arrested Saturday night by Deputy Marshal Holloway. No record of intake at the juvenile facility. No record here. His grandmother's been stonewalled 4 days." The two deputies exchanged glances. Something passed between them. Confusion, maybe concern. "Mum," the first deputy said to the clerk, "do we have a record of Ryan Chen in the system?" "That's confidential information. I'm a sworn law enforcement officer asking about a missing child report. Is there a record or not?" The clerk's face went rigid. "You'll have to speak to your supervisor about this." "My supervisor is Sheriff Holloway, who happens to be Deputy Holloway's uncle, which is why we're asking you directly." The clerk's hand tightened on the phone. "I'm calling the sheriff. You do that," the deputy said. Then he turned to Jade. "Give me the grandmother's name and contact information. I'll look into this myself." Jade handed him a card with Grace Chen's details. The deputy looked at it, looked at his partner, then at the clerk, who was already dialing. "Come on," the deputy said to Jade. "Let's take this conversation outside before it gets messy." They walked out of the courthouse into cold sunshine. The deputy's nameplate read Collins. "Officer Collins," Jade said. "Are you aware that Deputy Holloway is under investigation by the FBI for evidence tampering and possible involvement in the deaths of David and Jennifer Chen?" Collins stopped walking. "What?" "Ryan Chen's parents both died in accidents investigated by the Holloway family. Both were opposing Summit Energy's mill project. Both deaths happened at convenient times for Summit. Now Ryan witnesses Holloway moving evidence boxes at the same mill where his father died. And suddenly Ryan disappears from official records. You see the pattern. I see a lot of accusations without proof. We have photos of them. Holloway and federal agents moving police evidence boxes at an unsecured location. That's tampering. That's felony misconduct." Collins was quiet for a long moment. "If what you're saying is true, I can't help you. Sheriff Holloway runs this department with an iron fist. Anyone who questions him gets transferred or fired. I've got a wife and a baby at home. I can't afford to lose this job. But you believe me?" I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You asked the clerk directly about Ryan Chen. You walked out here instead of arresting us for disruption. You know something's wrong. Collins looked back at the courthouse. Months ago, a dispatcher named Sarah Winters filed a complaint. She said she overheard Sheriff Holloway telling Deputy Holloway to lose some paperwork related to a land dispute. The complaint went to Internal Affairs. Sarah was fired weeks later for performance issues. She moved to Idaho. I tried to contact her to ask what really happened. Her phone number's disconnected. It's like she disappeared, because they scared her enough that she ran. Or they did something worse. Collins met Jade's eyes. Look, I can't officially help you, but unofficially. Check the mill basement. There's old holding cells down there from when it was a processing facility. If Holloway's hiding someone, that's where I'd look. Have you been down there? Once years ago during a training exercise. It's a maze. Easy to get lost. Easy to lock someone in. And forget about them. Jade felt ice in his veins. How many cells? Dozen, maybe more. All connected by tunnels. Some of them flood when it rains. We had inches yesterday. If Ryan's locked in a basement cell and water's rising, then you'd better find him fast. Collins walked back toward his patrol car, and Jade pulled out his phone. Stone. It's Jade. We need eyes inside that mill now. Copy that. We've got thermal imaging equipment in the truck. Give us minutes to set up. Minutes felt like hours. Jade paced the sidewalk while Maya coordinated with Gunner's team. Rico called with an update that made everything worse. Boss, I hacked the county system. You're not going to like what I found. Tell me, Ryan Chen's intake record existed until Sunday morning at AM. Then someone with admin level access deleted it. Not just archived it. Deleted it completely. Wiped the file, the backups, everything. Who has admin access? The county clerk, the sheriff, and anyone with the sheriff's login credentials, which means Holloway. Yeah, but here's the interesting part. The deletion was logged from an IP address that traces back to Summit Energy's corporate office. Jade stopped pacing. Summit deleted Ryan's records directly, or someone working for Summit, using their network. Either way, it proves coordination between the company and local law enforcement. This isn't just a corrupt cop. This is systematic. Can you recover the deleted file? Already did. According to the original intake form, Ryan was supposed to be transferred to state custody Monday morning. The transfer order was signed by Judge Crawford, who by the way owns shares of Summit Energy stock. So the whole system's rigged top to bottom. But boss, there's something else. The intake form lists Ryan's condition at booking. Multiple contusions, laceration above left eye, possible concussion. The booking officer noted that Ryan claimed he was injured during arrest, but Deputy Holloway stated the injuries were from resisting and falling. Jade's hand tightened on the phone. He beat that kid and documented it as self-defense. If Ryan dies in custody, Holloway's already got a paper trail showing the kid was injured before intake. He's setting up his defense. Ryan's not going to die. We're getting him out. You'd better do it soon. I just intercepted police dispatch. Sheriff Holloway is calling in mutual aid from 3 counties. They're organizing a coordinated response to what they're calling motorcycle gang activity, threatening public safety. How many officers? Maybe more. They're staging at the armory. 8 minutes. Jade looked at the courthouse, at the deputies who'd been called to remove them, at the town that had spent months looking the other way while children were orphaned and families were terrorized. Tell Stone to move on the mill. Tell Gunner to pull her teams back to the diner, and tell everyone to gear up. If the cops want a confrontation, we'll give them one. But we're getting that kid out first. Copy that. Jade was heading back to his bike when his phone rang again. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Martinez. Mr. Martinez. This is Grace Chen, Ryan and Lily's grandmother. Jade's heart rate spiked. Mrs. Chen, are you all right? No. Her voice was shaking. 2 men just left my house. Federal agents. They said they were investigating Ryan's disappearance and needed to ask me questions. But the questions weren't about Ryan. They were about Lily. They wanted to know where she was. They said she'd run away, and they were worried about her safety. What did you tell them? I said I didn't know. But Mr. Martinez, they weren't concerned. They were angry. They searched my house without a warrant. They took David's laptop and all of Jennifer's papers. And when they left, one of them said, Grace's voice broke. He said that children who wander off in Montana winters sometimes don't come back. He said Lily should come home before something terrible happens. That's a threat. I know. I know what they're doing. They're trying to scare me into giving them Lily, because Lily knows where Ryan's phone is, and Ryan's phone has the evidence. Mrs. Chen, do you have somewhere safe you can go? I'm years old with arthritis and no car. Where would I go? Jade made a decision. Stay inside. Lock your doors. I'm sending someone to get you. You're going to spend the day with your granddaughter, where we can protect you both. You can't protect us from federal agents. Watch me. He hung up and radioed Gunnar. Change of plans. I need you to pick up Grace Chen. Address is Pinewood Drive. Bring her to the diner. Use back roads and make sure you're not followed. Everything was accelerating now. The piece is moving into place like a chess game, where both sides knew the end game was coming and neither could back down. Jade climbed on his bike and headed back to the diner, where Lily was waiting with Rico and Sarah. When he walked in, Lily looked up with hope and fear mixed together on her small face. Did you find him? Not yet, but we're close. How close? Jade knelt in front of her. Close enough that the bad people are getting desperate, which means we need to be smart. Your grandmother's coming here. Some federal agents visited her and made threats. We think they're going to try to use her to get to you. Lily's face went white. They're going to hurt Grandma. Not if we get her first. Gunnar's bringing her here now. And then what? Then we find Ryan and end this. Rico's laptop beeped. Thermal imaging is up from the mill. They crowded around the screen. The thermal camera showed the mill's interior in shades of red and blue. Most of the building was cold, empty. But in the basement level, in the northeast corner, there was a small heat signature. Human-sized, not moving. That's him, Lily whispered. That's Ryan. Jade stared at the screen. The heat signature was faint, barely registering, which meant whoever it was had been there long enough that their body temperature was dropping. Hypothermia, dehydration, maybe worse. Stone, Jade said into the radio. I need you to breach that mill right now. Northeast basement corner. We have a possible victim in critical condition. Negative. Boss. Holloway's still inside, and he's got company. 2 more vehicles just pulled up. Looks like private security. How many? 6. Armed with rifles. They're setting up a perimeter. Jade looked at the thermal image, at the small fading heat signature. That might be a 9-year-old boy dying in the dark. Then we go through them. Boss. If we breach while Holloway's inside, this turns into a hostage situation. He could use the kid as leverage. Or he could kill the kid and destroy the evidence, while we sit out here with our thumbs up our asses. Sarah put a hand on Jade's arm. There's another way. Lily said she and Ryan used to play at the mill before their father died, which means she knows the layout. She might know a way in that Holloway's security won't be watching. Jade looked at Lily. Is that true? Lily nodded. There's a drainage tunnel on the south side. It comes up through the old boiler room. Ryan and I used to sneak in there to explore. Daddy didn't know. He would have been mad. Can you draw us a map? I can do better than that. I can show you. Absolutely not. You won't find it without me. The entrance is hidden under brush, and it's only big enough for a kid to fit through. You'd walk right past it. Sarah and Jade locked eyes. They both knew this was a terrible idea, but terrible ideas were all they had left. If we do this, Jade said slowly, you follow every instruction exactly. No arguing, no running off. You do what I say when I say it. Understood? Understood. And if shooting starts, you hit the ground and stay down, no matter what. Even if you hear Ryan's voice, even if you think you can help, you stay down, I promise. Jade stood up and looked at his family, at the bikers who'd ridden through the night to save a child they'd never met. at the little girl who'd walked miles barefoot because she refused to give up. "All right," he said. "Let's go get her brother." The drainage tunnel was exactly where Lily said it would be, hidden under decades of brush and rust on the south side of the mill. Jade sent Stone's team to create a distraction at the front gate, while he, Maya, and two others named Reaper and Ghost followed Lily through the undergrowth. "There," Lily whispered, pointing to what looked like solid ground. "You have to move the metal plate." Reaper pulled away branches and found it, a rusted grate barely 50 across. He tested it with his weight and it held. But when he tried to lift it, the metal screamed. "We can't use this," Maya hissed. "They'll hear us coming from a mile away." "Oil," Ghost said, producing a small can from his pack. "Always carry it for the bikes." He worked the hinges while Jade watched the mill. Through the boarded windows, he could see flashlight beams moving on the upper floors. Holloway was still inside, which meant they had minutes at best. The grate came free with a whisper instead of a scream. The hole beneath was black and smelled like standing water and decay. "I'll go first," Lily said. "Like hell," Jade replied. "I go first, then you, then Maya, Reaper and Ghost. You stay topside and watch our six. Anyone comes, you radio, and then you slow them down." "How slow?" "Slow enough that we get Ryan out before they get in." Jade lowered himself into the tunnel and dropped FD into cold water that came up to his knees. His flashlight showed a concrete passage, barely FD high, running into darkness. He reached up and Lily dropped into his arms, light as air and twice as fragile. "Which way?" he asked Dot. She pointed left without hesitation. "FD, then right at the junction. The boiler room is straight after that." They moved through the tunnel and the water got deeper with every step. By the time they reached the junction, it was at Jade's waist and Lily was struggling to keep her head above the surface. He lifted her onto his shoulders and kept moving. "How much further?" "I don't know. It's been years. Everything looks different." Maya's radio crackled. Stone's voice came through barely above a whisper. "We've got movement at the front gate." Holloway just stepped outside. He's on his phone. Looks agitated. "Copy that. How long do we have?" "Unknown. But boss, there's something else." 3 black SUVs just pulled up. Federal plates. Agents are getting out and they're geared up like they're expecting a war. Jade's blood went cold. "How many?" "All armed. They're talking to Holloway now." "Can you hear what they're saying?" "Negative. Too far out." Jade looked at the tunnel ahead, at the darkness that held a dying child, at the little girl on his shoulders who trusted him to make this right. They were out of time and options and running on pure, desperate momentum. "Keep eyes on them. If they start moving toward the south side, you let me know immediately." "Copy." The tunnel opened into the boiler room, exactly where Lily said it would. Jade lifted her down, and they stood in ankle-deep water, surrounded by rusted machinery that looked like something from a horror film. Maya swept the room with her flashlight and froze. "Boss, look. Fresh footprints in the sediment. Boot prints leading to a steel door on the far wall. Someone's been down here recently." Maya whispered. "Holloway," Lily said. "He knows about the tunnel. He must have found it when he investigated Daddy's accident." Jade approached the door. It was locked from their side, which meant whoever had been here had come through and locked it behind them. He tried the handle anyway, and wasn't surprised when it didn't move. "Can you pick it?" Maya asked. "Given about minutes and better tools." "Yeah, but we don't have minutes. Then we make noise and alert everyone upstairs that we're here." "You got a better idea." Jade didn't. He pulled out his sidearm and fired 3 rounds into the lock mechanism. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, echoing off concrete like thunder. The lock shattered and the door swung open into a hallway lined with steel doors. "The cells," Lily whispered. They moved fast now, checking each cell. The first 3 were empty. The 4th had a dead rat floating in inches of water. The 5th had graffiti on the walls from teenagers who'd gotten in before the mill was condemned. The 6th was locked from the outside. J didn't hesitate. He kicked the door and it flew inward. And there on the floor into feet of filthy water was Ryan Chen. He was curled in the fetal position, his lips blue, his skin grey. His hands were zip-tied behind his back, and there was dried blood on his face from a gash above his eye. He wasn't moving. Ryan. Lily screamed and threw herself into the water, crawling to her brother. Ryan, wake up. Please wake up. Maya was already there. Fingers on Ryan's throat, checking for a pulse. Seconds passed like hours. He's alive, Maya said. Barely. Pulse is weak and his breathing's shallow. We need to get him warm and dry right now, or we're going to lose him. Jade cut the zip ties, while Maya wrapped Ryan in the thermal blanket from her pack. The boy's eyes fluttered open, for just a moment, unfocused and confused. Lily. His voice was barely a whisper. I'm here, Ryan. I'm here. We're getting you out. The phone. Did you? I got it. I got the phone, and I found help just like you told me to. Ryan's eyes found Jade. You're the bikers. That's right, son. And we're not leaving without you. Ryan's hand reached up, grabbed Jade's vest with the last of his strength. Haul away. He's going to kill Grandma. Make it look like an accident. Like Mommy and Daddy. Your Grandma's safe. She's with my people. He said, evidence room. Summit paid him to destroy the water samples. All of them. Ryan. Save your strength. No. Ryan was crying now, frustrated tears mixing with the filthy water. You don't understand. The samples prove the contamination was deliberate. Summit poisoned 7 properties, including ours, to force the sales. Daddy documented everything, but Holloway took the evidence. It's still here in the old evidence room. Basement level 2. Jade looked at Marta. There is another level, according to the building plans, she said, pulling out her phone and checking the photos Rico had sent. Basement is where they used to store chemicals for the processing. Access is through the main building, which means we have to go up with a critically hypothermic child who can't walk. Then I'll carry him. Jade lifted Ryan, and the boy weighed nothing. All bone and terror and stubborn will to survive. They moved back through the boiler room toward the tunnel, but Stone's voice stopped them. Boss, they're coming. Holloway and 6 agents heading for the south entrance. They know you're inside. How long? Minutes? Maybe less. Jade looked at the tunnel, at the water that was still rising, at Ryan, who needed a hospital minutes ago. Going back the way they came meant walking straight into federal agents with automatic weapons. Going up meant navigating a building they didn't know while carrying a victim who couldn't run. Change of plans, Jade said. Maya, take Ryan and Lily back through the tunnel. Get them to the bikes and get them to a hospital. I'll go up to basement and find the evidence room alone. That's suicide. It's the only play we have. Ryan's dying, and those water samples are the only proof we have of deliberate poisoning. If Summit destroys them, this whole thing falls apart. Boss, that's an order. Maya looked like she wanted to argue, but Ryan made the decision for her. His eyes rolled back, and his body went limp in Jade's arms. He's seizing, Maya said, checking his vitals. We're out of time. I need to get him to a hospital right now. She took Ryan from Jade's arms and started back toward the tunnel. Lily stood frozen, torn between following her brother and staying with the man who'd come this far. Go, Jade said gently. Your brother needs you, but you're going to get the evidence. I'm going to try. Daddy kept samples in a blue cooler. He marked them with orange tape. If you find them, Lily's voice broke. If you find them, you prove they murdered my parents. Then I'll find them. Lily hugged him quickly, fiercely, and then ran after Maya into the darkness. Jade watched them disappear, and then turned toward the steel door that led into the main building. He could hear boots on concrete above him now. Multiple sets moving fast. He went up the stairs 2 at a time, his weapon drawn, his heart pounding. The first floor was empty, just rusted machinery and broken windows. The second floor was the same, but when he reached the stairs going down to basement, he heard voices. Told you the breach was on the south side. They came through the drainage tunnel, just like I said they would. That was Holloway. Jade recognized the voice from news clips Rico had shown him. And you're certain the child is dead? That was a different voice, older, authoritative. days without food or water and freezing temperatures. Yeah, I'm certain. The hypothermia alone would have killed him. Then why haven't you disposed of the body? Because I wanted to make sure there were no loose ends first. The girl's still out there. She has the phone. If she makes it to the FBI before we can contain this, the girl is 5 years old. She's probably dead in a ditch somewhere. You don't know this kid. She walked miles in the snow to get help. She's tougher than you think. Then we need to find her before the bikers do. Jade's hand tightened on his weapon. He wanted to walk down those stairs and put a bullet in Holloway right now. But that wouldn't get him the evidence. That wouldn't save the families Summit had poisoned. That wouldn't finish what David Chen had started. He moved past the stairs and found another passage leading deeper into the basement. The walls here were lined with old filing cabinets and storage lockers, all rusted and forgotten, and at the end of the hall, a door marked evidence, authorized personnel only. The door was locked. Jade shot the lock and pushed inside. The room was full of boxes and bags, all catalogued and dated, all covered in dust. He started searching, looking for orange tape, looking for anything that might be marked as Chen evidence. His radio crackled. Reaper's voice urgent. Boss, we've got a problem. Sheriff's deputies just arrived. Cars. They're surrounding the building. Where's Maya? Made it to the bikes. She's en route to the hospital with the kids. Good. Tell everyone else to pull back. Get out of here while you can. What about you? I'm finishing what I started. Boss. That's an order. Reaper, get our people clear. I'll find my own way out. He turned off the radio before Reaper could argue and went back to searching. There were hundreds of boxes, thousands of evidence bags. Finding one blue cooler in this mess was like finding a needle in a haystack, while the haystack was on fire. Then he saw it, pushed into the corner behind a filing cabinet. Blue plastic, orange tape. The label read Chen David, water samples, case number, sealed by order. Jade grabbed the cooler and was heading for the door when Holloway appeared in the doorway with a gun pointed at Jade's chest. Put it down, Holloway said. Can't do that. I'm a federal officer. Put down the evidence and step away. You're a murderer, and I'm walking out of here with proof. Holloway's finger moved to the trigger. You're not walking anywhere. You're going to shoot me in front of all these witnesses. Your own deputies are outside. Your federal friends are upstairs. How are you going to explain killing an unarmed man in an evidence room? I'll say you were stealing evidence, contaminating a crime scene. I'll say you went for your weapon and I defended myself. Except my weapon's holstered and you fired first. Says who? Says the bikers who are recording this entire building with cameras. Says the FBI agent who's been listening to this conversation through my wire. Jade pulled open his vest, showed the small microphone taped to his chest. Says the federal prosecutor who's going to use your confession about killing Ryan Chen to put you away for the rest of your life. Holloway's face went white. You're bluffing, am I? Because from where I'm standing, you just admitted to kidnapping and attempted murder of a federal witness. You admitted to evidence tampering. You admitted to being on Summit Energy's payroll. And it's all on tape. There's no wire. You're lying. Then shoot me and find out. They stood there 8 feet apart, weapons drawn, both knowing that the next seconds would decide everything. And then a voice came from behind Holloway. Put the gun down, Frank. Officer Collins stepped into the doorway, his own weapon drawn and pointed at Holloway's back. Collins, what the hell are you doing? My job. Put the gun down. I'm your superior officer. You're a disgrace to the badge. I said put it down. Holloway's hand was shaking now. He was trapped, and he knew it. Behind him, more deputies appeared. Young ones, the ones who joined because they wanted to help people, not because they wanted to join a criminal enterprise. It's over, Frank, Collins said. Your uncle's already in custody. Federal agents arrested him minutes ago. Summit Energy's CEO is in handcuffs. The whole operation's collapsing. You can put the gun down and face trial, or you can shoot this man and spend the rest of your life in a cell for nothing. Holloway looked at Jade, then at Collins, then at the blue cooler full of evidence that would destroy everything he'd built. They promised me, Holloway whispered. Summit promised if I helped them, I'd be set for life. No identity, money, offshore accounts. A way out. They lied, Jade said. Because that's what predators do. They use people until they're not useful anymore. And then they dispose of them. Just like you were going to dispose of Ryan. The kid saw too much. The kid was 9 years old. And you locked him in a basement to die because you were more afraid of losing your payoff than you were of murdering a child. Holloway's gun dropped. His whole body sagged. Collins moved in fast, cuffing him while reading him his rights. Jade walked out of the evidence room with the cooler under his arm and climbed the stairs to the main floor. Outside, the mill was surrounded by law enforcement from 6 agencies, all of them scrambling to figure out what had just happened. News vans were pulling up, reporters were setting up cameras, and in the middle of it all, a black sedan with federal plates. Agent Marcus Webb climbed out looking tired and relieved and angry all at once. Jade, you crazy son of a. Took you long enough. Hours. I made it in hours. That's pretty damn good considering I had to coordinate with 3 field offices and get emergency warrants. Marcus looked at the cooler. That what I think it is. Water samples proving Summit Energy deliberately contaminated 7 properties to force sales. Evidence that was supposed to be destroyed. But David Cheng was smart enough to keep backups. Where's the boy? Hospital. Critical condition, but alive and haul away. Cuffed and confessing to anyone who will listen. He's going to roll on everyone to save himself. Marcus took the cooler like it was made of gold. This is going to bring down half of Montana's political establishment. Good. They earned it. A motorcycle pulled up. Sarah was driving and she looked furious and relieved in equal measure. You turned off your radio, she said. Had to. Couldn't risk them hearing my position. I thought you were dead. Takes more than a corrupt deputy and $1 billion corporation to kill me. She pulled him into a hug and he held on, letting the adrenaline drain away, letting himself feel the exhaustion and fear he'd been pushing down for hours. Ryan, he asked stable. Maya got him to the hospital in time. He's warming up, and they've got IVs going. Doctor said another hour in that cell, and he would have died. And Lily won't leave his side. Grace is there, too. They're together. They're safe. Jade looked at the mill, at the place where David Chen had died, and where his son had almost followed him, at the evidence room that held the proof of a conspiracy, at the deputies hauling Holloway out in handcuffs, while cameras recorded every second. It's done, he said. Not quite, Marcus said. I'm going to need statements from everyone. The bikers, the witnesses, the family Summit poisoned. This is going to be a long investigation. How long? Months, maybe years. But we'll build a case that sticks. Summit Energy is finished. Everyone who helped them is going down. What about the kids? They'll be protected. Federal witness protection, if necessary, and they'll testify when we need them. But for now, Marcus smiled. For now, they get to be kids again. They get to heal. Sarah's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face broke into a smile. Ryan's awake, she said. He's asking for the biker who carried him out. Jade looked at Marcus. We done here for now. Go. I'll catch up with you later. The hospital was chaos when they arrived. News crews, federal agents, deputies trying to manage the crowd. But Sarah knew a back way in, and they found Ryan's room on the 3rd floor without being stopped. Grace Chen was sitting beside the bed holding Ryan's hand. Lily was curled up on the other side, her head on her brother's shoulder. And Ryan was awake, pale and weak, but alive. He looked up when Jade walked in, and his eyes filled with tears. You found the samples. I found them, all of them. Every single one. Orange tape. Blue cooler. Just like your dad marked them. Ryan closed his eyes. He knew. Daddy knew they were going to kill him. That's why he hid the backups. He told me. The night before he died. He told me that if anything happened to him, the evidence would be in the mill. He said someday someone would find it and finish what he started. He was right. Is Holloway going to jail for the rest of his life? Good. Ryan looked at Lily. You did it. You saved me. "We saved each other," Lily said. "That's what family does." Grace was crying quietly, and Jade put a hand on her shoulder. "Your son was a hero, Mrs. Chen. He stood up to people who had all the power and all the money, and he didn't back down. And now, because of him, 7 families are going to get justice. Because of him and because of you," Grace said. "You didn't have to help us. You didn't even know us." "That's where you're wrong," Jade said. "The second Lily walked into that diner, you became family. That's what the Iron Wolves are. We're a family built from people the system failed, and we don't leave family behind." Ryan reached out and Jade took his hand, careful not to disturb the IV lines. "Thank you," Ryan whispered. "You're welcome, son. Now rest. You've got a long road ahead of you." As they left the hospital, Sarah leaned against Jade and sighed. "What happens now? Now we let the lawyers and the feds do their job. We make sure those kids stay safe, and we go back to riding. Just like that. Just like that." But Jade knew it wasn't over. It would never be over, because somewhere out there, another child was being failed by the system. Another family was being crushed by people with power and money and no conscience. And when that child found the courage to ask for help, the Iron Wolves would answer, because that's what family does. The charges came down like an avalanche over the next hours. Deputy Marshal Frank Holloway faced federal counts, including kidnapping, attempted murder, evidence tampering, conspiracy to commit murder, and obstruction of justice. Sheriff James Holloway was charged with corruption and racketeering. Judge Crawford was arrested for bribery and falsifying court documents, and Summit Energy's entire executive board was indicted on charges ranging from environmental terrorism to conspiracy to commit homicide. But Jade wasn't watching the news from the hospital waiting room. He was watching Ryan Chen struggle to answer questions from a federal prosecutor who didn't understand what it meant to ask a 9-year-old to relive 4 days in hell. "Ryan, I need you to tell me exactly what Deputy Holloway said when he locked you in that cell," the prosecutor said. Her name was Amanda Price, and she had the eyes of someone who'd seen too many bad things and stopped feeling them. Ryan's hand was shaking. "Grace held it tighter," he said. Ryan's voice cracked. "He said nobody would look for me, because nobody cared about Chen kids anymore. He said my parents were troublemakers, and I was following in their footsteps, and it was going to get me killed just like it got them killed." "And did he specify how your parents died?" "He said my dad's accident wasn't an accident. He said the beam was cut because my dad wouldn't listen to reason. And he said my mom's car went off the road because she kept asking questions nobody wanted to answer." Amanda made notes without looking up. "Did he say who cut the beam or who ran your mother off the road?" "No, but he said the people he worked for didn't leave loose ends. He said I was a loose end." And then Ryan was crying now, not sobbing, just tears running down his face, like he was too tired to hold them back anymore. "He said if I was lucky, I'd die of hypothermia before they came back to finish the job." Jade stood up. "That's enough." Amanda looked at him. "Excuse me," I said. "That's enough. This child has been through hell, and you're treating him like a hostile witness. I'm building a case that will put multiple killers in prison for life. I need his testimony to be clear and detailed." "And he gave you clear and detailed." Holloway confessed to murder. "You have it on tape. You have the water samples. You have witness testimony from 6 families. And you have Holloway's own deputies turning on him. You don't need to traumatize this kid any further to make your case. With all due respect, Mr. Martinez, you're not a lawyer, and you don't get to decide what I need for trial. With all due respect, Miss Price, I'm the one who pulled this kid out of that basement while you were sitting in your office. So yeah, I get to decide when enough is enough." Grace spoke up quietly. "He's right. Ryan's answered your questions. If you need more, you can come back when he's had time to rest." Amanda closed her notebook. "Mrs. Chen, I understand this is difficult, but Summit Energy has lawyers who will tear apart every inconsistency in Ryan's testimony. They'll claim he's confused, traumatized, unreliable. We need his statement to be rock solid. My grandson watched his father die. He watched his mother die. He spent days believing he was next. If that doesn't make him a reliable witness to murder, I don't know what does. Amanda was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. I'll come back tomorrow. But Ryan, I need you to think about everything Deputy Holloway said to you. Everything he did. Every detail matters. I remember everything, Ryan said. I'll never forget any of it. After Amanda left, Jade sat down beside Ryan's bed. The boy looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his skin still too pale. How you holding up, son? I want this to be over. I know. When does it end? When do we get to stop being scared? Jade thought about all the easy lies he could tell. Soon. It'll be over soon. Everything's going to be fine. But Ryan deserved better than easy lies. It ends when the trial's over and the people who hurt your family are in prison where they can't reach you. That's going to take time. Months, maybe a year. But every day between now and then, you're going to get a little bit stronger, a little bit less scared. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you made it through the worst thing that could happen and you survived. Did that happen to you? Jade hesitated. He didn't talk about his childhood, didn't talk about the father who broke his ribs when he was, or the foster homes that were worse than the father. But looking at Ryan's eyes, he knew the boy needed to hear it. When my father put me in the hospital. Broken arm, fractured jaw, internal bleeding. The doctors asked what happened, and I lied because I was scared. Said I fell downstairs. They knew I was lying, but they couldn't prove it. So they sent me home. That night, my father told me if I ever told anyone the truth, he'd kill me and make it look like an accident. I believed him, so I stopped telling the truth. I stopped asking for help, and I spent 6 more years getting beat because I thought nobody would care. Ryan was listening with the intensity of someone who understood exactly what Jade was saying. What changed? Ryan asked. I got big enough to fight back, and one night when my father came at me drunk and mean, I hit him harder than he hit me, broke his nose, and while he was bleeding on the floor, I walked out, never went back. Where did you go? Nowhere good for a long time. I was angry and scared, and I made a lot of bad choices. But eventually, I found people who cared whether I lived or died. The Iron Wolves. They gave me a family when I didn't have one. They taught me that the world's full of predators, but it's also full of people who will stand between you and the predators if you give them a chance, like you did for me, like we did for each other. You gave me a chance to be the person I needed when I was your age. That's a gift, Ryan. Don't forget that. Ryan's eyes were closing. The medications were pulling him under, but he fought it long enough to say one more thing. I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to help kids who need someone to believe them. Then you will. But first, you get to be a kid. You get to heal and go to school and play and do all the things kids are supposed to do. The helping comes later. The surviving comes first. Jade left the room and found Sarah waiting in the hallway with coffee and news that made his stomach drop. Victor Brennan called. Summit Energy's attorney. He wants to meet. Tell him to go to hell. He said it's about a settlement offer for the Chen family. We don't negotiate with killers. He said they're prepared to offer $1 million and a full apology if Grace agrees not to pursue civil litigation. Jade stared at her. They think they can buy their way out of this. They're going to try. And Jade, $1 million would change those kids' lives. Grace could afford the best therapists, the best schools, a house anywhere she wants. They'd never have to worry about money again. And in exchange, Summit walks away with their reputation intact, and Ryan and Lily have to live knowing their parents' killers bought their silence. It's not our decision to make. It's Grace's. Jade knew she was right, but the thought of Summit Energy walking free made him want to put his fist through a wall. Grace made the decision 3 days later, sitting in a conference room with Ryan and Lily on either side of her, facing Victor Brennan, and a table full of lawyers in suits that cost more than most people's cars. Mrs. Chen, Victor said smoothly, I want to start by expressing Summit Energy's deepest condolences for your losses. The deaths of David and Jennifer Chen were tragic accidents that never should have happened. They weren't accidents, Grace said quietly. They were murders. Your company paid corrupt officials to kill my son and daughter-in-law because they stood in the way of your profits. That's a very serious allegation, one that has not been proven in court. It will be when Deputy Holloway testifies. Deputy Holloway is a disgraced officer, facing life in prison. His testimony is unreliable. But Mrs. Chen, we're not here to debate the past. We're here to discuss the future. Your grandchildren's future. He slid a folder across the table. Summit Energy is prepared to offer you $1 million in compensation for any hardship you may have experienced. In addition, we'll establish a trust fund for Ryan and Lily's education. We'll provide relocation assistance to anywhere in the country. And we'll issue a public statement acknowledging that our development project caused distress to your family. Grace didn't touch the folder. And in exchange you agree not to pursue civil litigation against Summit Energy or any of its employees. You agree not to speak publicly about the case. And you allow us to move forward with our Riverside Mill project without further interference. So you want to buy our silence. We want to provide your family with the resources to heal and move forward. $1 million, Mrs. Chen. That's generational wealth. Your grandchildren would never have to struggle the way you have. Grace looked at Ryan and Lily. Both children were watching her with eyes that had seen too much. What do you think? Grace asked them. Lily spoke first. Mommy and Daddy died because they wouldn't let bad people win. If we take the money, doesn't that mean the bad people won anyway? Victor smiled indulgently. Sweetheart, this isn't about winning or losing. This is about your grandmother being able to take care of you. Don't talk to my granddaughter. Grace said sharply. You don't get to call her sweetheart. You don't get to pretend you care about my family. Your company killed my son and his wife. You would have killed Ryan if these bikers hadn't found him. And now you're sitting here trying to buy your way out of consequences. Mrs. Chen, please be reasonable. I am being reasonable. Reason says that people who commit murder should go to prison. Reason says that companies who poison communities should be held accountable. Reason says that $1 million doesn't bring back the dead or erase the trauma you've inflicted on these children. Victor's smile faded. If you refuse this offer, you'll get nothing. The criminal trial will take years, civil litigation even longer, and at the end of it, Summit Energy will still be in business, and your grandchildren will still be traumatized. Take the money, Mrs. Chen. It's the smart choice. Grace stood up. My son made the smart choice. He documented your crimes. He gathered evidence. He was prepared to testify even though it cost him his life. And I'm going to finish what he started. We're not taking your money. We're going to court. And we're going to make sure everyone knows what Summit Energy really is. You're making a mistake. The mistake was yours when you thought you could kill a Chen and get away with it. Grace took her grandchildren's hands and walked out. Victor. Brennan watched them go with an expression that said this wasn't over. In the hallway, Jade was waiting. He'd heard every word through the door. That took courage, he said. That took rage, Grace replied. I'm years old. I don't have the energy for courage anymore. But I have plenty of rage. Good. Rage is useful. The trial started months later. The federal courthouse in Helena was packed with reporters, protesters, and people who'd been watching Summit Energy destroy communities for years and finally had a chance to see justice done. Ryan testified on day 3. He wore a suit that Grace had bought him, and he walked to the witness stand with Lily sitting in the front row where he could see her. Amanda Price asked him to describe what happened at the Riverside Mill, and Ryan spoke clearly and calmly, like he'd been practicing this moment for months. I saw Deputy Holloway and 3 men in suits loading boxes into a van. The boxes had evidence tape on them. I took pictures because my dad always said, if you see something wrong, you document it. Deputy Holloway saw me and told me to come down. He took my mom's phone and arrested me for trespassing. Then he drove me to the mill and locked me in a basement cell. He said I was a loose end and loose ends get cleaned up. What did you think he meant by that? Amanda asked. I thought he was going to kill me like he killed my parents. The courtroom was silent. Did Deputy Holloway say he killed your parents? He said my dad's accident wasn't an accident. He said the beam was cut because my dad wouldn't stop asking questions. He said my mom's car crash was arranged for the same reason. He said I should have learned from their mistakes. And how did that make you feel? Ryan looked at Holloway, who was sitting at the defense table trying to look innocent. It made me feel like nobody was going to help me, like the police and the courts, and all the adults who are supposed to protect kids were part of the problem. It made me feel alone, but you weren't alone. No, my sister saved me. She walked miles to find help when every adult she asked said no. She's years old, and she's braver than anyone in this room. Lily was crying in the front row. Grace had her arms around her. Amanda Price turned to the jury. That 5-year-old girl is the reason we're here today. She refused to accept that children don't matter. She refused to accept that powerful people can kill without consequences. And because of her courage, we have the evidence to prove that Summit Energy Corporation engaged in a systematic campaign of murder, intimidation, and environmental terrorism spanning years and 7 families. The trial lasted weeks. Witnesses testified. The water samples David Chen had hidden proved deliberate contamination. Holloway's confession was played in court, his voice describing how Summit Energy paid him per property to make problems go away. Federal agents testified about the evidence tampering. The Morrison family and 5 others described the harassment and poisoning that drove them from their homes, and in the end, the jury deliberated 4 hours and came back with guilty verdicts on every count. Holloway got 4 consecutive life sentences. Sheriff Holloway got years. Judge Crawford got. Summit Energy's CEO got years. And the company was ordered to pay millions in restitution to the victims. The day the verdict came down, Jade was at the Iron Wolves clubhouse in Millbrook, watching it on TV, with almost 100 bikers who'd become family over the past months. When the guilty verdict was read, the room erupted in cheers and Sarah pulled Jade into a kiss that tasted like victory and relief. His phone rang. It was Grace. We won, she said, crying and laughing at the same time. David won. Jennifer won. The kids won. You all won. You didn't give up when Summit tried to buy you off. You saw it through because you taught us that sometimes the right thing is the hard thing. Thank you, Jade. Thank you for believing a little girl when nobody else would. Thank Lily. She's the one who walks through the snow to find us. I tell her that every day. She doesn't quite believe it yet, but she will. Months after the trial, Jade and Sarah made another trip to Montana. The Riverside Mill site had been transformed into a thriving community center, and they were dedicating an expansion, funded by the restitution money from Summit Energy. Ryan was there, home from law school for the summer. Lily was there, now and somehow even more fierce than she'd been at. Grace was there, looking frailer, but happier than Jade had ever seen her. And there was someone new. A young woman with dark hair and nervous eyes holding the hand of a boy about years old. Uncle Jade, Lily said. This is Maria and her son, Carlos. They're staying with us for a while. Jade looked at Grace, who smiled sadly. Carlos's father was killed months ago. Whistleblower in an environmental case. The mother's been getting threats. I thought they might be safer here with us, with people who understand what it's like to fight corporations that don't care who they destroy. How long have they been here? Weeks. Ryan found them through his advocacy work. He called me and asked if we could help. Jade knelt down in front of Carlos. The boy looked terrified and exhausted and achingly familiar. Hey, Carlos. My name's Jade. Are you a biker? I am. My mom says bikers are dangerous. Jade smiled. Your mom's right. We are dangerous, but not 2 little boys who need help. You're safe here, okay? Nobody's going to hurt you or your mom while we're around. Carlos studied Jade's face, making the same calculation Lee had made years ago. Weighing the danger he could see against the danger he'd left behind. Okay, Carlos whispered. Maria spoke up, her voice shaking. I didn't know where else to go. The police say they can't protect us. The FBI says they don't have jurisdiction. Everyone says we should just relocate and hide and hope they forget about us. How's that working out? Grace asked gently. We've relocated 3 times in months. They find us every time. Someone keeps leaking our location. Someone in law enforcement, we think. Someone on their payroll. Jade exchanged looks with Sarah. They'd heard this story before. They knew how it ended if nobody intervened. You're not hiding anymore, Jade said. You're done running. We're going to finish this the way we finished Summit Energy. Publicly, legally, with so many eyes watching that they can't make you disappear. How? By making noise. By telling your story. By bringing in people who can't be bought or threatened. And by showing them that killing one whistleblower just creates more who won't be silenced. Ryan stepped forward. I've already contacted 3 law firms that specialize in whistleblower protection. I've got a classmate whose father is an investigative journalist for the Washington Post. And I've got the Iron Wolves on speed dial. We can't pay you, Maria said. We don't have any money left. We don't want your money, Grace said. We want you to survive. We want your son to grow up knowing that his father's death meant something. That the people his father tried to protect actually got protected. Maria started crying and Grace pulled her into a hug. Carlos watched confused and scared, and Lily sat down beside him. It's okay to be scared, Lily said. I was scared too, when bad people were after my family. But these people, she gestured at the Iron Wolves, at Grace, at Ryan. They don't let bad people win. They taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means asking for help even when you're terrified. Did bad people hurt your family? They killed my parents. They locked my brother in a basement to die. They tried to make us disappear. Carlos's eyes went wide. But you're okay now. I'm okay now, because I found people who believe me. And now you found us. So you're going to be okay, too. Jade stood there watching a 9-year-old girl comfort a 0-year-old boy. Watching the cycle continue. Watching victims become survivors, become protectors. The dedication ceremony started an hour later. The mayor spoke about community healing. The tribal elder spoke about honoring the dead by protecting the living. Amanda Price, who'd prosecuted the Summit case and was now running for state attorney general or a platform of corporate accountability, spoke about the ripple effects of one family's courage. And then Ryan spoke, 5 years ago. My father died trying to expose corporate criminals. My mother died asking questions about his death. And I almost died because I witnessed evidence of that corruption. We should have been just another statistic, just another family destroyed by people with power and money and no conscience. But we weren't, because my 5-year-old sister refused to accept that nobody cared. He gestured to where Lily stood, still holding Carlos's hand. Lily walked miles through snow to find someone who would listen, and she found bikers who became our family, who taught us that the system can fail, but people don't have to, who showed us that sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules, and who proved that ordinary people doing extraordinary things is the only force strong enough to stand against corruption. Ryan pulled out a plaque and unveiled it. The inscription read, "In memory of David and Jennifer Chen, who refused to be silent. In honor of Ryan and Lily Chen, who refused to give up. In gratitude to the Iron Wolves MC, who refused to walk away. May this place always be a sanctuary for those the system has failed." The crowd applauded. But Jade wasn't listening anymore. He was watching Carlos, who was staring at the plaque with something like hope dawning in his eyes. That night, after the ceremony ended and the crowds went home, Jade sat with Sarah on the steps of the community center, watching the sun set over the land where David Chen had died. How many more? Sarah asked quietly. How many more Carlos and Maria? How many more kids who need someone to believe them? Too many, Jade said. Way too many. We can't save them all. No. But we can save the ones we find. And we can teach the ones we save to save others. That's how it works. That's how change happens. One child at a time. One family at a time. One person refusing to walk away at a time. Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. You ever regret it? Stopping at that diner years ago? Getting involved in something that almost got you killed? Jade thought about the question. Thought about the federal agents and corrupt cops and billion-dollar corporation they'd gone to war with. Thought about the nights he couldn't sleep because he was terrified they wouldn't find Ryan in time. Thought about all the ways it could have gone wrong. Then he thought about Ryan standing on a stage promising to protect other kids, about Lily comforting Carlos, about children saved by legislation that existed because one family refused to be silenced. Not for a second, he said. Good, because I just got a call from Gunnar. There's a situation in Idaho. A teenager who says her stepfather is trafficking her younger siblings. She's reached out to Child Protective Services 3 times and nothing's happened. She's desperate. How old? And the siblings? 6 and 8. Jade stood up and pulled out his phone. Started texting. Within minutes, responses came back. Boise chapter ready to roll. Spokane standing by. Wyoming asking for coordinates. When do we ride? Sarah asked, first light. I want to be there before the stepfather knows we're coming. Jade. I know it's dangerous. I know we could get hurt or killed or arrested. I know we're getting older, and this life is getting harder. But somewhere in Idaho, a 15-year-old girl is making the same choice Lily made years ago. She's choosing to trust that someone will care, and I'll be damned if I let her down. Sarah smiled and kissed him. That's why I married you. Because you're the man who shows up. We show up, all of us. That's what family does. They walked back to the bikes, where Iron Wolves were already preparing for the next ride, the next rescue, the next fight against people who thought power made them untouchable. And as Jade mounted his motorcycle and kicked the engine to life, he looked back one more time at the memorial with David and Jennifer Chen's names carved in stone. We're still fighting, he said quietly, knowing they couldn't hear, but saying it anyway. We're still refusing to quit. And we're teaching your kids to do the same. Your legacy isn't that you died. It's that you showed people how to live with courage and conviction, and the absolute refusal to let evil win unopposed. The bikes rolled out as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, engines roaring into the night. People who'd chosen to be the cavalry, ordinary humans doing the extraordinary work of standing between children and darkness, because that's what heroes do. Not because they're special, not because they're fearless, but because when a child walks miles through the snow and asks for help, some people still believe that answering that call is worth everything.